I can stand.
All right. Okay, so this is, yesterday we learned 2 different formulas. Okay, so we learned 2 different formulas. Do you remember what they were called? Anybody? Sum of cubes and the difference of 2 cubes. Okay, what would this be called up here? Difference of 2 cubes. Okay, what was the first thing I have to do though to make sure it is the difference of 2 cubes? It's not written like that right now. How would I have to rewrite this? So what times what gives me 8? 2. Okay, so 2 times 2 times 2 gives me 8. So it'd be 2c cubed minus what times what gives me 27? 3. So now I have 3d cubed. Okay, now if you go to page 342 in your book, the formulas are sitting there. Okay, there's a small parenthesis, and then there's a big parenthesis. Okay, so we got my A, which is this guy.
You have 2 subscribers.
Legit. Okay, so I got this here, and then I got this here. These are both going to be used with my A. My B will be this part here, which is this guy, and then this part here. And then how do I get my middle part?
There's multiply.
Combination of both, so A and B together. Okay, and then let's put my signs in here. So if this is a difference here, then what does it have to be right here? Difference. And if this is a minus, what's the other one have to always be? Opposite. And then this is always plus. This would be plus every single time. Alright, so what do I put right here in this spot? 2c. And then what do I put in this spot? 3d. Okay, not bad 3d. Okay. How do I get this number in the front of the second part there? It's 2c what? Squared. What does that actually mean? 2c times 2c, which is what? 4c squared. Okay, how do I get my last term over here? 3d squared. So 3d squared, and what does that give me?
9d squared.
9d squared, correct. Okay, and then what is my middle number? How do I get that? So these two together, so you take these two. 2c times 3d. 2 times 3 is what?
6.
And then c, d. And then that would be factored.
You got 6 CDs.
I do. Questions on that? Alright. And that right there would be my answer. So I'm done factoring. That's the difference of 2 cubes. So yesterday, I taught you both of these. The sum of 2 cubes and the difference of 2 cubes. We just did the difference. The sum is the same thing except the signs are flipped on. So this would be a plus. This would be a minus. This is always a plus. Okay, otherwise it's the same thing. Today I'm going to teach you a new thing. You may have learned it in Algebra 1, may not have. It's called factor by grouping. Okay, so far we know how to factor polynomials with 2 terms and 3 terms. Okay, 3 terms would be like if I covered this up, you'd have 3 terms here, and we could do 2 sets of parentheses. What times what's my first? What times what's my last? Okay, now if we introduce a 4th term, anytime there's anything higher than 3 terms, we're always going to use factor by grouping. Okay? What does the word grouping mean to you if I say grouping? What's that mean we're going to do?
Put together.
We're going to group things together. Okay? And I usually go with 2 groups every time. Okay? And it doesn't matter how you do them. You can do them in different orders. But I'm going to pick these 2 and these 2, and I'm going to group them. Okay, that's my first step. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look in this first group and I ask myself, is there something in common that I can factor out? A 2? Anything else? An x? And an x squared actually, because x squared is the highest power there. Okay, so I'm going to factor a 2x squared out of this first parenthesis. Okay, what am I left with? So 2 times what gets me to 2? 1. X squared times what gets me to x squared? An x. 2 times what gets me to negative 4? Negative 2. X squared times what gets me to x squared? I'm good, right? Okay, that one's done. Then I'm going to come over here. What's in common in the second parentheses here? A 5 or a negative 5. And I'm going to take out a negative 5, and I'll show you why here. Negative 5 times what gets me negative 5? 1, and then there's gonna be a what left over? An x. Negative 5 times what gets me? Negative 2. Okay, what do you guys notice up here? And that's what has to happen every single time.
Everything is subtraction.
Someone might have said it. What do you notice right here?
Those are the same thing.
They're the same thing. Guess what? Whenever I do factor by grouping, you always, always, always have to have the same thing here and here. If you don't, then it's not going to work out with factor by grouping. Okay? So then, that's the reason why I took out a negative. If I didn't take out the negative, it would have been a minus x and a plus 2, and those aren't the same. So that the reason why I took out the negative was to get this parenthesis and that parenthesis to match up.
Could you put it as 2x squared minus 5, parenthesis, x minus 2, parenthesis?
That's exactly what you do. Okay, so what I do first here, I'm going to do it the other way, but that's also correct. I always put my common term, so this guy, out in front. So I'm going to have an x minus a 2 out in front. Okay, that is my common term. I'm going to highlight it here so you can see that. So I put my common term, whatever we had in common, out in front. Okay, and then I put my leftovers in the second parentheses. So what's left over here? 2x squared and then a minus 5. Because technically what I'm doing, do you see how it's this term, this is one term, and then this is another term? What's in common with both of these terms here? Do you see how they both have an x minus 2 in common? So then I factor an x minus 2 out in front, is what you're technically doing there. And then you're left with whatever's left over.
Would the x minus 2 be squared?
X minus 2. Nope, because it's like you're factoring. So like if this was like an A and this was an A, do you see how they both have an A in common? So you would factor that A out in front, so it'd just be an A out in front. So like since it's x minus 2 and x minus 2, they're common, you just bring them out in front, but they're not squared. Because like if I distributed back in with both of these, it would be this thing times 2x squared. You see that's what we have here? And if you distribute it back into here, it would be this times a negative 5, which gives me a negative 5 times that. Good question. Any other questions on that? Alright. So now that's kind of like the basics of how you do factor by grouping. I'm going to do a little harder one now. Okay, so now we're going to do one that's like this. How many terms are up there?
A little harder, really?
A little harder, it's not bad. 6. Okay, is 6 bigger than 3?
Yes.
Okay, since it's bigger than 3, there's only one way to do this, and that's factoring how? By grouping. Okay, so this is factor by grouping. Okay, so I need 2 groups again, so can I group maybe the first 2?
First 3.
First 3, sorry, yep, the first 3. Correct. And the second 3. Okay, so I'm going to group the first 3 and I'm going to group the second 3. So again, what's my next step now? Factoring anything that's in common, yep. What's common between these 3?
2.
A 4, yep. And an x. So 4 times what gets me to 8? 2. And then there's an a. And do I need an x or I already have one? I got one. Okay, 4x times what gets me 4bx?
B.
Just a b, because I already have the 4 when I multiply there and I already have the x when I go to there.
And then just a C.
And then just a c, because 4x times c gives me 4cx. Okay, that first group is done. Okay, then I'm going to go to the next group. So what's common on my next group here?
3.
A 3, let's put a plus, so a plus 3 and a y. 3y times what gets me to 6?
2A.
2 and then a. 3y times what gets me to 3by? A plus b. 3y times what gets me to 3cy? Plus c. Okay, what happened there again? Okay, remember, that has to happen every single time. If it doesn't happen, can I do factor by grouping? No. So now what do I do next after I'm here? I want to factor this out in front, right?
X
So I put,
plus 3Y.
I'm going to put my common terms out in front, which would be a what? A 2a, a plus b, and a plus c. Okay, what will be always in my second parentheses?
4.
Yep, the leftovers. So my leftovers go in my second parenthesis, and then I'd be done on that one.
What do you have against leftovers?
I don't like leftovers. Not a fan. I I'd rather cook a regular meal. Alright, questions on that?
I'd rather make a pizza.
Same. Alright, I want you guys to try this one on your paper for me.
You would do this, wouldn't you? Making us do work.
Gee, we're only in that class, but he shouldn't make us do work.
He really shouldn't. He's an evil person.
I am. Okay, so again, I ask myself how many terms are up there.
A bunch.
Okay, and this negative 12GZ is one term, I just didn't have room to write it, so that should be on the same level at the back end there. Okay, so I need you to do that. Factor by grouping, because there's more than 3 terms.
There's 700,000.
It won't work. Wait.
Now here's the deal, when you guys group them,
This one won't work.
why not?
Because it's got an H instead of an F.
Okay, so the H doesn't match up. So now here's the deal. This one's not in order. So I don't have to always just do first 3, second 3. I can group them with the things that have the same common parts. So what might I want to group together in my first part here?
The F and the 20, the 8, and the 12.
So the Y's maybe? Do you see how there's 3 Y's up here?
Oh, yeah.
So maybe I want to group this Y,
Oh.
this one with a Y, and this one with a Y. Okay, so maybe make that as your first parenthesis, or your first thing you're going to factor out. So look at all 3 of those now, and what could be common out of those. And just write that out in front.
Really?
What are you doing?
So what's common on this first one here?
5.
A 5, yep. Anything else? A Y. Okay, so I'm going to have a 5Y that comes out here. 5 times what gets me to 20? 4, and then a F. Ooh, that parenthesis might not be big enough. Alright, 5 times what gives me 15? And that's a 3. And a G. And then 5 times what gets me to negative 10? And that would be a negative 2. And then an H. Alright. Okay, let's group the other one. So now, let's group the other 3. What's in common on these last 3? Oh gosh.
Yeah, these won't work, I don't think.
Yeah, it does.
What's common on these last ones here? A 20, a 15, no, what do we got? A 16, an 8, and a 12. A 4, negative 4, and a Z. And now, why do we bring out a negative?
So it's the same as.
So it matches up to this one, right? So negative 4 times what gives me the negative 16? 4 and then an F. And then negative 4 times what gets me to positive 8? That'd be a negative 2Z. Not Z, sorry, H. Where should that go though?
The end.
So I have a negative 2
It would
H.
Wouldn't you have to have a negative 3, which would make it not work?
No, so then what, negative times what would get me to a negative?
This is negative.
Positive, so then negative 4 times a positive 3 gets me to a negative 12. And then I would have a G left over there. Okay, and that's a minus sign right here with this 2H. Did they match up perfectly here and here now?
Yeah.
Yep. Huh? Okay, so I'm going to factor out my common term out in front. So my common term out in front would be 4F plus 3G minus 2H. And then what would be going on in my second parentheses?
5y minus 4z.
Yep, my leftovers, so 5y minus 4z. And that right there would be my answer. How many got that one right? Okay, factor by grouping makes sense?
Yep.
Probably a little easier than the difference in sum of two squares a little bit. Yep, so today what we're gonna do is we're gonna have an assignment on both of them. Okay, and that assignment is page 346, numbers 1 through 10. And on this 1 through 10, so it's a combination of the sum and difference of squares and factor by grouping. If there's more than 3 terms, we automatically know it's factor by grouping. If it's 2 terms, it's probably completing, or difference or sum of 2 cubes. And then there's gonna be 2 primes out of these 1 through 10, so 2 of these
Can you make it odds?
are going to be prime. Nope. And then, your first step on every problem is to take out a common term. So always take out a common term if there is one, and then do the factoring after that. So it could be factor by grouping or sum or difference of 2 cubes.
Like if it's